Welcome to the NBAV podcast. Welcome back to NBAV, the NBA Avenue podcast, where we'll go through all of last night's games and we'll talk about the few games coming up and storylines, exciting points, and more. Starting with the Pistons losing to the Hornets by 1 point, 108-107 victory for the Hornets. All I'll say is that I'm happy that they at least put on a good showing in case there were any Charlotte fans in the arena, and in case there were any Pistons fans watching, at least they saw a close basketball game. You have the Pacers in what I called the lock of the night, beating the Orlando Magic. The Magic actually kept it close, and the Pacers maybe lacking a little bit of killer instinct at the end. Jarris Walker was just unbelievable, but what the Magic didn't do in this game was they didn't take away his best spot. Anyone who's watched Jarris Walker play this past preseason knows that he loves the straightaway three and the high wing threes. Basically, as close as you can get to straightaway, that's where Jarris Walker's three-point shot is its best. And he shot all of his threes from there, from those areas. So if you're going to let a guy shoot a three-pointer wide open, you can't give it to him in the spots that he likes the best. That's a horrible recipe. And Orlando competed, but at the end of the game, Franz Wagner's three-point shot, he threw up some absolute bricks when it mattered most. He continues to show that he's the fraud Wagner, and that's why it was my lock of the night, and Pacers did capitalize on it. I'd like to see a little better killer instinct from them like they had in the previous game when they faced off against Dallas, but sometimes you play up to competition and down, and that's unfortunately the problem with the Pacers, but with the state of the East, the Pacers are poised to climb and climb and climb and be a top 5 or 6 seed. Should be not even too difficult for them with how they've been playing. Then you had a real surprise. I did not see the Warriors beating the Celtics. They won by 6, 118-112. And yeah, I know that Jaylen Brown wasn't in there for the game, but I would have thought that a team that wins 80% of their games was going to beat this Warriors team. And just because the Warriors started off and got a bunch of victories doesn't mean that they're a good team. They played a lousy schedule, and they won some games that you didn't expect without Steph Curry in the lineup. What are the Warriors showing? They're showing that sometimes the number one ingredient is how bad do you want to win? And you can argue, you could say, what do you mean? You can't just have a will to win and win, but it's not really true. Unless you're rolling out there an all-time terrible lineup. If you want it more than the other team, and you're willing to attack and attack and attack and not give in, that puts you in a really good position. And we saw this from another team last night. I know we're skipping ahead, but the Nuggets beating the Thunder, that is not a game that the Nuggets are going to win too many times out of 10. What the Nuggets did last night isn't replicable. They can't replicate it. They had sheer will. They were down by a bunch, and then suddenly Westbrook got hot. Westbrook went out of the game, and other players got hot. They empowered all the other guys on their team. Jokic wasn't getting calls, and everyone did exactly what they needed. Brown hit all the shots he needed. Strother hit all the shots he needed. Michael Porter Jr. hit all the shots he needed. And Jokic only put up 23 and somehow managed to get the win. I didn't see that coming. I thought Jokic would put up 30 in the game. But he only puts up 23. And somehow they still get the victory. A real shocker. And it came off of just wanting it. That's what happened. They went after it in a crazy frenzy. It was insane the way they came back in the game. And I would venture to say if they tried to do this another 5 times, maybe they don't even win one of them against this Thunder team. But last night they just wanted it. And I think that the Warriors and the Nuggets, The Nuggets after going down 0-2. And the Warriors knowing that they need to get victories early in the year because they may not, if they don't get early victories, they may not be around to get late victories. It may not matter. The Nuggets starting 0-2. They said, we need to start winning ball games. And even without Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, they somehow got the victory. And I told you at the beginning of the year, Russell Westbrook's going to put up numbers just because they need him to. Just because he's going to get the time. And you're seeing it. You're seeing that teams who want the victory get the victory very often. And you have the Hawks against the Knicks. The Hawks wanted it real bad last night. They didn't like the Knicks fans in their building. But ultimately, I'm still not worried about the Knicks because I think that the Knicks are getting a tough whistle at the end of these ball games. They got a tough whistle on some Şengün plays at the end of the Rockets game that they lost. They got some tough whistles here, on Josh Hart at the end of this game. And I think that as the year goes along and the refs stop calling ticky-tack fouls and the Knicks play the tough defense, over time, the Knicks are going to start to win those fourth quarter games. That's what I see happening. And of course, when Precious Achiuwa comes back, the Knicks will be better slated for more victories. The Knicks are going to be okay. And I think the same thing, the other team that's really in a similar position to the Knicks are the Miami Heat. I think their records are identical. We'll just pull it up and take a quick look. The Knicks and the Heat are both 3-4. And they're in similar positions. They have teams where they've probably underachieved to start the season, despite certain players looking all right. Their team looks all right. They played some close games. The Heat lost just this one to the Suns. They lost the previous one to the Kings in a heartbreaker. And I'm not worried about either team because the East is so bad and they're fighting. They're in these games. And okay, it didn't go their way a couple of regular season games early in the year. I'm not going to worry about either the Knicks or the Heat. Both of these teams have enough talent to be top 5 or 6 seeds. And why do I say that? Well, the East is so horrible. Like we said this from the beginning of the year. We said that before the season started, we said there's going to be a difference in the East and the West in a more drastic way than even you've seen in the last few seasons. Because a whole bunch of teams are out of it just to start. Raptors, Pistons, Wizards, Hornets, Bulls, Nets. They're not going to be factors. And then the year starts off. Paolo Banchero gets injured and they lose 5 in a row. And the Sixers and Bucks are the 2 worst teams record-wise right now in the Eastern Conference at 1-6 each. So when the league is looking like that, when the Eastern Conference looks like that, yeah, for the Cavs, Celtics, Pacers, Knicks, and Heat, yeah, I think those teams are going to be top 5 seeds. And I wouldn't worry too much about them losing a couple of close, tough ball games within the first 7 or 8 games of the season. That's not too concerning. You have the Lakers, who are very concerning, because after starting off 3-0, they've just tanked straight down, and you're seeing classic Lakers here. You're seeing, well, they didn't have Anthony Davis, and I guess without Anthony Davis, they're not going to win any games. That's not going to be a recipe for them to win. What are they going to do? Davis has been putting up monster numbers, and in the games that they've looked really good in, Davis has been totally locked in. You're playing LeBron almost 40 minutes, and then you could just go through this. This is unbelievable. If you have LeBron playing 35 minutes, he put up 39 points. He plays 35 minutes in the game. You have Connect, plays 27 minutes. He only scores 3 points. You have Jackson Hayes, who scores 8 points in 35 minutes. Reeves did his job. Russell got benched with 12 points. Reddish scores 15. And then you just have too many guys who are not productive. In last night's game, you have 27 minutes from Connect with 3 points. You have 23 minutes from Vincent with 6 points. You have Koloko play for 13 minutes, and he only scores 1 bucket. You need more production. You need more players. Without Anthony Davis, they're not going to win a game like that. unfortunately for them. And suddenly the Lakers are 4-4 and they're in the gauntlet. I wouldn't panic yet. There's no need to panic. But they're in the gauntlet, and it's going to be nose to the grind every single game if they want to make it to the playoffs. The Rockets beat the Spurs by a lot more than I thought. I thought it would be closer considering the two teams, this is the third time they're playing in just the first 8 games of the season. But, hey, I guess without Sohan, that was a little too much for the Spurs to handle. Then you have the Cavaliers beating the Pelicans, who have nobody left to suit up for them. Cavaliers, the only team to be undefeated. There's only one team that has either been totally undefeated or totally defeated at this point. There are no teams that don't have at least a win, and there's only one team that won every single game, and that's the Cleveland Cavaliers, the phenomenal regular season team that most likely no one's worried about come playoff time, and that's going to be the theme for me going the entire way. Let's see, the Cavaliers are peaking at the wrong time. I mean, it's great. It's fantastic for them that they don't have to worry about seeding or anything because they don't lose any games, but if they start to dwindle near playoff time, you're not going to feel too good about them. So it's tempered. I would be very tempered excitement if I was a Cavaliers fan right now. I would continually say, this is not what matters. We'll take it. We'll take all the wins, but it's not what matters. We need to have it going at the right time. We could win 30 in a row right now. And if we lose the season and we go in stumbling and then we get booted in the first round, that was all for naught. That's what I would continue to tell these guys. You got to go at every game. You got to just make sure that you're prepared for the playoffs. That's what these guys have to do. They put themselves in an incredible position, sweeping the first 9 games of the season, and they got to get ready for playoffs. I know it's still too early, but you want to keep your team healthy. You want to get players involved who you're going to need to play backup roles in the playoffs, make sure that they get enough playing time during the season so that they're ready to go. That's what it's going to be about. Because the Cavaliers, there was really no way they weren't going to be a top 6 seed anyway. Whether they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that they play well in the playoffs and that their best players are healthy in the playoffs. So in last night's game, you have the 29 from Mitchell and the 14 from Garland. Their 2 main guards over there. Karis LeVert got back into the lineup, scored 16. So good to get him back. They're still waiting on Max Strus, and then they should have their complete roster. The Pelicans, Zion actually suited up for the game. He scored 29 points in 29 minutes. Pretty incredible, but they just don't have enough. They're playing Brandon Boston for 38 minutes and Jeremiah Robinson-Earl for 26. Jordan Hawkins for 19. It's just not enough. It's not enough. Then you have the Mavericks beating the Bulls by 20. The Suns got the victory. They're right at the top of the conference in the West. And again, they're showing they want it. The teams that really want the victories are getting the victories. The Suns, the Warriors, the Nuggets in their last several, winning 3 in a row. The teams that want it real bad have a definite edge in getting it. And the Suns, with their couple of tweaks to the roster and winning these close ball games, it's going to pay dividends for them in terms of record. When they need to be a top 6 seed, it's looking like they'll have a good shot at it if they can keep up the way they play in close games. We already discussed the Nuggets against the Thunder. I don't think it's something that can be replicated many times, but it doesn't matter. All that matters is that they got a victory last night, and there's another win in the win column, and these wins are going to add up. The losses are going to add up. They're going to need it if they want to not have to play any play-in games, if they want to be a top 6 seed in the West. The Kings finally pulled away from the Raptors after 3 quarters and got it done in the fourth quarter, 122-107. The Clippers got another victory over the 76ers. So far, Paul George in the first 2 games as a Sixer lost both of them. They don't win games without Embiid, and Maxi's not the same guy without Embiid. We saw that last season. Despite numbers, they win almost none of the games that Maxi plays without Embiid. Almost none of them. And that trend is continuing, and they're digging themselves into a massive hole. Now, tonight you have a game of the Trailblazers against the Spurs. I don't know if anyone's really going to care about that game very much. Blazers versus the Spurs early in the season. It's kind of a rough one. You have the Timberwolves against the Bulls. It's a clear A-side, B-side matchup. I don't know who's really going to pick the Bulls on the second night of a back-to-back to beat the Timberwolves. And after coming off of a 20-point loss last night, now going again. A late start time. I don't love this for the Bulls. Who's really going to bet on them in this one? I don't know. And then you have the Jazz against the Milwaukee Bucks. You have two teams with pretty identical records, but the Bucks just desperate for victories. They have Giannis. They have Lillard. The Bucks, if they don't win this one, I don't know what else there's going to be to say. Like, what if they don't win this? What game are they going to win? So, for an NBA fan, not as much action happening tonight. You can take it a little bit easier. Not too much in terms of the betting. And if you want to look at the odds of the 3 games that you have, unless you're getting into prop bets and things like that, and trying to make parlays on points, rebounds, and assists, there's just not too much in the simplicity of betting winners and losers in games. Let's see the odds. You have Utah, the big underdog against Milwaukee. They're plus 295 to Milwaukee's minus 370. Portland and the Spurs. Portland is a slight underdog on the road, so maybe you go Portland there. Spurs in the second night of a back-to-back, maybe, but still not incredible odds. And then the Timberwolves, heavy favorites, minus 420 to the Bulls, plus 330. So, take it for what it is. This is a quiet night. Maybe relax on the gambling a little bit and just enjoy a couple of games. If you get one good one, enjoy it, and we'll get back ready for a much more complete full night of NBA action where on Friday night we're going to have, looks like every team playing. Every team in the NBA, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 games. So not quite every team, but you're going to see 26 out of the 30 teams. So, as always, we're your source for a great time every time. And until next time, we are out.